All right, everyone, welcome to another edition of the Good Life Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Ligley, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Pat Slack, who is the owner of C21 Midlands Real Estate Brokerage. C21 is the new. You may know it more as Century 21, but C21 is what they're going with now right here. So, Pat, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So let's get to know you a little bit. What books are you reading or listening to right now?
Well, believe it or not, I'm an avid reader, Brian.
Yeah.
On the headboard of my bed, there's about 7 books, and it just depends on the mood I am when I lay down and can't sleep. And I will tell you, as a small business owner, there are nights that you can't shut it down.
Sure.
And so I kind of pick the laugh or the real or the slow read to make me go to sleep. But right now, the ones I'm really into is 2. Crazy Horse by Mary Sandoz.
Okay.
Okay, and then America First again by Mark Levin.
Okay. Very good.
So those 2 is kind of what I'm. America on the Rise is another book as well, which is a conservative book too as well. But those are typically the books I tend to stick to.
So are you
I'm not a fictional guy, right?
No.
I'm not a fictional guy.
I'm not really either.
Yeah.
Do you like to be reading more than one at a time, or do you like to? I know there's some people like to pick one, and that's the one they listen to or read.
No, I have to have multiple.
Yeah.
Again, I have a flamboyant personality, so it's kind of whatever I feel like at the moment.
Got it.
Go out on feeling.
Okay. How about podcasts? You listen to any of those?
I listen to a lot of Mark Levin podcasts. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but there's a real estate mogul guy that puts on podcasts that I listen to quite frequently.
Yeah.
That's more designed for the commercial and investment real estate side of things.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Podcasts are great for that, especially if you want to get industry specific, no matter what you do. They're really good about, if you want to fine tune whether it's social media or sales or whatever it is, just different things you can do.
Well, and they also bring up good ideas. I mean, there's a lot of times that, gosh, I didn't think about that. At least you have an idea or a birthing place of an idea to form to kind of keep things going on. I think it helps me get a little bit of fire and enthusiasm for the week because I offer training every week to the brokerage and my agents. So sometimes those ideas flow down from there to just kind of get ideas.
Sure.
Sometimes you get stuck at the crossroads. I know my brain goes 100 miles an hour, but the part that's creative doesn't work so good.
Yeah.
I'm not the creative guy. I'm more of an executioner.
Sure.
So that's where that stuff comes in very handy for me.
Always good to get ideas.
Yeah.
All right, Pat. So tell us your story, and you can kind of go from where it started to where you are now, but just kind of give us your version of the story of being not only a realtor, but a small business owner.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to kind of give the shortest version that I can, Brian.
Okay.
I went to Hastings College, and after one semester, I realized that these guys couldn't pin me up no more.
Right.
I had kind of that was my spirit. Just come on, I want to work. Yeah. And so, believe it or not, I don't have a post-secondary education. That's not something that tripped my trigger, and I don't think it's for everybody.
Right.
But I tell you, the people that don't go to post-secondary education, they have a different mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Their self-motivation is probably the integral piece to that equation. So there I went. That spring, I was driving a truck for my dad, who had a truck line, and we had some cattle, and I just kind of did that. And then that summer, I thought, well, I better do something with my life. And so I went to auction school, believe it or not. And it was July, and hell, I was 22 years ago now, almost. And 14 days, got my auctioneer diploma. And really what they did at the auction school was teach you about the business. And yes, you worked with your voice, you worked with your chant, but they really focused on the business and essentially how to conduct a good auction. And anyway, I graduated there and got my diploma. It cost me $1,200, by the way, to get my diploma for 2 weeks.
This was back in?
This would have been 2000.
Okay.
And I got that, got back to Gibbon, was doing my thing, and about a month later, this little old lady in Gibbon had called me up, and that's where I grew up, Gibbon, Nebraska.
Okay.
Gibbon, USA, baby.
That's right.
And she called me up. She says, hey, I'm moving to assisted living and need to sell all my stuff. And hey, oh, by the way, I need to sell my house too. I'm like, oh man, I don't have a real estate license. I can't. So there I scrambled and I went to Lincoln for, well, in the same month, 2 different weeks for the full week to get enough hours to sit for the exam back in that day. And passed the exam and sold her house, did the auction, there it was. First thing I ever did, month out of going to school, and it's never quit since then. I mean, it's just always continued on. In 2005, I obtained my broker's license. So I've had my broker's license for about 16 years now. And I was under other brokers. I was more or less an associate broker. And did that gig for a while. And then 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago now, I had an opportunity to buy the C21 Brokerage with Jack and Janice going to retirement. You know, I kind of pushed and prod for several years prior to that to get a plan for transition, but you know, they'd been there all their lives doing it too, so I was pretty emotional transfer, I guess is what I would say. And anyway, we finally got it done, and here I am. So that's kind of the short end of it, and it just you just grind it out, every day.
Yeah. So what? And we talked before we hit record, but one of the things that I wanted to get your take on was, so you were a realtor, broker, and maybe you can explain the differences there too, but what are some of the challenges where, you know, you are, your trade is to be selling houses, to be a realtor, but to buy the franchise for C21, and now you're a business owner, and so you've got other realtors that are here with you, and you've got to kind of maintain all the other stuff that you didn't have to deal with before. Just kind of talk about what that has been like.
Absolutely. And just for clarity purposes, a licensed agent in the state of Nebraska means you hold a real estate license to sell in the state of Nebraska. State of Nebraska does require you to have a license and also a written agreement with the seller in order to conduct negotiations in real estate business. Now, a realtor, on the other hand, is a licensed agent that is a member of the National Association of Realtors, which means then not only are you licensed and have to follow state law, we now follow a code of ethics set forth by the National Association of Realtors. So being a licensed agent and being a realtor are 2 different things, but that's basically the difference between the two, that a realtor is going to abide by the code of ethics, which tend to be very equal to the state laws, but sometimes in some cases, in certain aspects, are more heavily laden with, you know, morality, I guess, if you will. Is the word I'm going to use there. Now, being an associate broker is basically being a licensed agent, other than I'm working for a broker. Yes, I have my broker's license, but I'm working for a broker, not a broker. Now, a broker is somebody who owns a brokerage, is the sole principal broker or managing broker, as designated to the real estate commissions. Certainly where my role has transitioned to. Now, being a broker, you know, I still sell. I have to be, you know, being a new business owner or small business owner. I hate the word broker. I hate the word boss, because that's not what I am for my agents. You know, I call it goat herding, but essentially what I'm kind of a mentor capacity, and I knew and had been under several different brokerages previous, so I knew what I didn't want. Couldn't necessarily tell you what I wanted, but I knew what I didn't want. And so that's when I had this whole dream and vision to this office of moving it towards that direction, and it's worked out well. And one of those things was, you know, I didn't want to be the biggest brokerage in Kearney, Nebraska. I essentially wanted us to be the best, and that's why, you know, mentorship is very important. So if I get new agents, I do a lot of training, a lot of technical training and self-betterment training, because my folks, when they show up, they bring value to the table, and that's highly, highly important to me. But not only that mentorship to get the younger ones, the new ones, kicked down the road a little bit easier, a little bit quicker understanding, and kind of get into the system a lot quicker than normal, because most agents after 1 year are done. 90% of them are done in 1 year. that's the fallout rate. So very hard to be successful here, but the sky's the limit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're here every day, you're making your calls, you're doing the right things. And most importantly, what we've learned essentially through COVID was relationships matter. And I gotta say this because this is a big deal in our industry. I don't know if you heard about Zillow here in the last week.
Oh, no, I guess I haven't.
Okay, well, Zillow quit buying houses. I'm going to tell you and the listeners why Zillow quit buying houses is because they were losing money. They were relying heavily on Redfin and iBuyers and all that stuff. Here's the problem Zillow finally figured out. Each market is very, very specific, number one. You need people like us to relay that information. And number three, most importantly, most people, when they buy, residentially speaking, that is such a low frequency decision that they want that counsel. Sure. They want that advisory. Okay, so we're not, real estate agents, not really what we do anymore. What I've conformed our office to be is more of advisory and counseling. That's where people see the value in us to bring that to the table. And one word I speak often of is due diligence. You know, heavy due diligence on the properties and provide the things that most people don't want to hear, need to hear it. You know, they're our boss. You make your own decision, but here's the deal. Here's where we're at. Here's where, you know, all kinds of things you got to take into play. Yeah. So there's the quick rundown of all of that.
Got it. Was it, from a transition standpoint, do you do as much as you did before from listing properties and things like that, or is it more, have you had to kind of take more of a broad kind of vision of what you wanted it to be? And has that been easy?
That's a very good question. This guy's good at asking questions, by the way. He's really tapping into the gut here. I tell you what, the transition is nothing what I expected, okay? I like to sell. Really, honestly, my strength is being with people. And it's making and making those deals. And that's what's challenged me, because I went from selling to managing and business owner. And such a, you know, I knew there was going to be some things, you know, but there was a lot that I wasn't expecting. Yeah. And so I still sell, not at the capacity I was doing before. However, I've done a good job with my agents to understand, you know, look, I get all kinds of personal referrals coming in and have told them that you guys are an extension of me. So I'm able to gladly and happily move those referrals to my agents, and the job gets done. And that's what matters to me most. So that's worked out well in that department. But I've also seen that my time in the day gets, do you have a minute? Do you have a minute? Those things are very tough. And so I also have to train my herd is, you know, they know my schedule. They know when I can be bugged and not be bugged. And you got to stay on that schedule. It's otherwise it's, you know, I'm grumpy at the end of the day if I feel like I don't have anything accomplished that I wanted to get accomplished. I get crabby. You can ask my wife. I get very crabby about that. So I'm very driven because the night before I lay out what I'm doing the next day, and I've got to hit those. Otherwise, I don't, for myself, don't feel like I'm gaining. You know, I always, never holding, always advancing type of guy. And, and so that's always been a struggle there. One thing that worked out, and it's just dumb luck, Brian, when I bought the brokerage 3.5 years ago, C21 was going through a rebranding. So it was just dumb luck that, you know, I bought the brokerage a month later, hey, we're changing the whole face to this baby. And so we got new, you know, each agent has their own online portal basically to manage stuff, the CRM stuff. But you know, the logo, the colors, that transitionary stuff, signage was all good. I mean, it absolutely worked in my favor to do that. And they don't call me lucky for nothing, but that was one thing that was lucky, because sure, was I planning on spending more money on signage? No, but that's a big thing. You know, the other thing was our previous location was okay, but you know, you get on 2nd Avenue, the heavily dragged street here in Kearney, everybody's flying up and down. We're no longer a place where people just turn in. We are a destination. And that was exacerbated. We learned more of that during COVID. I mean, COVID really saw what we can do without having brick and mortar. But you still got to have that presence. And so by moving the brokerage to our new location, you know, we found our new home, worked out well to establish, because I think there's a certain degree of class that you gotta have and a minimum, I think, to be successful and have that
Sure.
face
Yeah.
in the community.
Yeah.
Because we are big community players, whether you want to admit it or not. At least my agents are
Yeah.
heavily involved with a lot of things.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and you know, that's just stuff that, like I said, the rebranding. And the reason I guess I'm kind of harping on this maybe a little bit is there is, and I feel like even myself in my business, I'm a little bit in this phase or season right now where you start out on your own and you are the only one in your business and you're doing the trade. It's easier to feel like you got something accomplished that day. But at some point, when your business grows, there's a place where you have to take a step back, and you're not in the day to day. You have to take a step back and kind of cast a vision for the people and the employees that you have. And so, but that's not easy. I'm not finding it very easy, but I see that it needs to happen. And so, at some point, if your business becomes successful, that's a challenge that you have to overcome.
Yeah. You know, and I'll tell you personally about myself, you know, I'm very good at seeing the whole forest and being able to see on the other side of that forest. The trouble of it is, the ends justify the means. You know, I'm an executioner, so I'm ready to get there, but my problem is micromanaging or being able to feel good about delegation.
Sure.
I've really had to learn that the last 3 years. And I think a lot of people don't know, and my agents know this, but you know, I've got a real estate coach for about 5 years now. And that was probably, and when we have our stuff twice bi-monthly basically, and we go through different things, and that's my accountability to somebody.
Sure.
And he does hold me accountable, that's what it is. And he's really helped me get my mind more of an executive style thinking than just, you know, reactionary to everything, playing defense all the time. Let's go on offense for a change.
Right.
And so that's been very helpful for that. Now, as a new business owner, Brian, I will tell you, here was my first 3 years of business in the real estate world. Year one, we had 2 500-year floods. Highly affected our market. I mean, these little towns, some of those properties there, properties here in Kearney get
Which would have been 2019.
Would have been 2019. Yeah. And so, second year was COVID. So we had to deal with that pandemic. And now this year, we're facing an inventory shortage. And that's very hard on my residential agents right now. The demand is there, but when you have all this competition for that single house that hasn't shown up for 2 weeks, it's like vultures. It's go, and you got to really, we've had to be very dynamic and figure out negotiations a little bit. And one thing that our office in our training sessions weekly have really broke down too is that not only speaking on the buyer side, it's pretty competitive, but the seller side. When times are easy to sell, everybody gets in their mentality that, hey, you know, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, but we get a lot of cleanup calls, Brian, and after the fact stuff, and those aren't easy to deal with sometimes because people got in a little bit more than they should have got in, or bitten off more than they can chew, and so I go into the for sale by owner market. Okay, so this time now we're dealing with for sale by owners, which is a little bit more than normal. But there's going to be consequences. I don't know what they're going to be. I don't have the crystal ball. You know, nothing's going to change until we get this inventory problem figured out. That's going to take years, to be honest with you. And so we're really analyzing that every week and going through that, so we're on top of that and being able to relay that information to both buyers and sellers. But we also feel that over the years that sellers probably haven't been represented as well as they could have been, which stems to the for sale by owner problem. You know, when you start bringing value to the table, they got a different look at you and what you can bring, because oftentimes I made people a better situation and was able to pay for it all, and they still made more. You know, but a lot of people don't like to listen to that. They won't give us the chance to listen to that. So, you know, it's part of the game.
So you talked about really 3 things that couldn't have been predicted between the flood, the COVID, and the inventory shortage right now. But talk about one of the questions that I've asked everyone is just talk about your experience through the pandemic, because there were some businesses that weren't really affected by it or maybe even thrived through it. But there's also, it seems like every small business had something that they, whether it was maybe remodeling the building, or they were, I don't know, they added a service or software, or things that they just didn't have time before, maybe they did now. So just kind of talk about the pandemic for your business, how you guys work through that, and then maybe something that you've taken out of it that you've implemented now because of COVID that has been good for your business.
Again, another dumb luck Pat Slack scenario is, the previous location we were at when COVID started, I was leasing that space. Knew that's not where I wanted to be. Okay, but I was going to buy some time, figure out things. Well, the summer of COVID, after it struck, I had found this location and was able to get this purchased. But I knew that, this was a great time to do this thing. However, not a Pat Slack luck thing. Fall of last year, when lumber prices started going up, shortages, all kinds of things. So I was in the middle of a rehab, going through all that just like everybody else. So I know the pain involved, and so don't my agents, because we were supposed to, what should have been a 3-month project, wasn't a massive rental, but it was enough that should have been quick, turned out to be 6 months.
For your office here?
For my office here. Just simply because we couldn't get things in and things of that nature. I mean, the wallpaper, for example, come from New Jersey, it's supposed to be here in a month, took 4. And so you're trying to get things finished up and keep kicking the can down the road. So that date just kept going backwards and backwards and backwards. But back to COVID, specifically on operations, I knew when that thing struck that, Kearney in our area has always been special. A lot of things we're immune to, even the mentality. So, yes, National Association of Realtors and the Nebraska State Association was zipping out things of what we should do. Well, I'm a guy who bucks the system. I use that as a guideline or a template for what I wanted to do, but we never shut down. Take that back. We have a rental department here. We did shut down for 1 week, we still worked here, but we closed the doors, appointment only. And that was after spring break and the call after it first hit, because we didn't have enough information. So I was closed for 1 week, otherwise we didn't. And we found that most of our clients and customers, we quit riding around with people. That was probably the single biggest thing. We met people at property, wore masks, did that type of thing. But our day-to-day operations really never changed. But I will tell you, renovating this office during COVID, I found that technology was going to be more important. That's one thing I did learn. And so I put, dropped in Cat 7 cable in here. I did different routing things here, did different AP services here. And that was a big thing. I mean, so I could be here 20 years and what's in the wall's not going to change anything. It just, I'm glad I did it at the time. Yes, it cost me more money, but I looked at it as an investment because now I don't have to do it again.
Had you thought about doing that before?
No, I did not. No, it was just, we were going to use existing Cat 5, whatever was in here, string some new Cat 5 to meet outlets or whatever. But no, I said, let's kick it up. Let's kick it up a notch. And then we were able to, we got fiber optic here, so we knew our internet infrastructure was just awesome, our IT. So I just said, forget it, let's kick it in gear here on this one. So no matter what we do in the future, because we're only running about 20% capacity of what this office can do technology-wise right now. And I mean, everybody can be watching videos, downloading everything, and we don't even get a burp. It's nice. And my belief, because I've never had it as an agent or a previous associate broker, was I really believe in facilities and technology. And I think that's very important for retention and recruiting for agents too. So, I'm proud to talk about that because this whole thing here was a big vision of mine to know what I didn't want, to go forward to that, what I want.
Technology, I think, was interesting even in our industry with the insurance side of it. I think that there were, and no matter what industry it was, I think that there was probably some hesitancy to, whether it's things like electronic signatures or Zoom or whatever, there was the aspect of you didn't want to lose that personal touch with your clients, and so you did maybe want to adopt some sort of technology. And maybe there were even clients or buyers. I can't think of the word I'm trying to say right now, but people that were out there, they're like, well, I want someone who's going to be here and talk to me and all that. And then when the pandemic hit, they realized there is some convenience in being able to have that technology aspect, and for small businesses. That's one of the reasons I asked this question too, is from a small business standpoint, when something like the pandemic hits that no one saw coming, when you're a small business owner, you have the ability to change and adapt and help out your clients maybe even better than you could before. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. However, we've learned that, Brian, COVID was challenging for yours truly.
Yeah.
Because I'm a shake your hand kind of guy, very social guy.
Mm-hmm.
Being an auctioneer, retired by the way, but my pro bono stuff, auctioneering, it didn't happen. And I realized, boy, that was a kick in the gut for me, because that's how I networked, how I obtained business for whatever, and at least kept my name out there.
Sure.
So it was really hard on me to do things on Zoom. What we figured out was the low grade stuff could be done, what I call low grade business.
Yep.
Getting a signature after discussion or whatever, what was really handy, and I think a lot of people did find that out. Hey, I can review this and sign this when I have more of a chance to think about it or whatever. I think some business was lost. I think some deals that could have succeeded didn't go together because of that. Couldn't do this.
Sure.
There is an element. It's like picking up a real book versus reading it on your iPhone or Kindle or whatever it is. There's a real difference.
Yeah.
And we've learned that people still want that. To what degree is still kind of working itself out.
Yep.
One of the negatives I found with COVID was we found that a lot of our clients that got stuck at home, working at home, I call it Zoom brain. We were oftentimes repeating ourselves, because on Zoom you really don't have to pay attention.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean by this, because I know if you're paying attention.
Right.
At least I can slap you if you're not,
Right.
to go over something.
Sure.
So sometimes I think there were some things that weren't heard that should have probably been heard. But I think that's just a spin-off of the consequence of the situation that's unintended. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
Kind of have to regrow with that,
Yeah.
So.
Very good. I want to ask you on you're pretty active on social media. You guys do videos and things like that, showings. Was that your idea, or were you maybe pushed into being more active on social media? Is that something that you wanted?
That's something that I wanted.
Yeah.
And, I have a full-time marketing director, and her sole job is two purposes, and I always say this as a joke, to make the outhouse look like the governor's mansion.
Yeah.
And then number two, first and foremost on social media, keep the old engine out there. Not necessarily for the brokerage, but for the properties and the services that we provide. That was the biggest thing. And so I pulled her in full time, and that's been nothing but successful, because that's taken a load off of my agents and myself. I mean, that's all she does when she comes in and keeps that thing chugging along.
When did you bring her on full time?
When I bought the brokerage.
You did.
So
Okay.
I've had her for 3 years. Now, she was part-time before, under the previous ownership.
Okay.
And I just saw a big need that, what she does is good, and I didn't want to lose her. So she has a marketing background, that's what she does, her degree. And so I thought, what a better way to, let's go. I don't train anybody. She knows what I want. It's just, here you go.
Yeah.
And so she's equipped, and we do some vlogging. We're starting to get into that a little bit more, but I think a lot of my agents don't have the candidness in front of a camera to start talking. But I have in the last year opened up a commercial division to our office with 3 agents, Brandon and Jason and myself, who are running that department. And so that's where really my sales is kind of pushed to, is more of the commercial investment side, which has been very fun. We've recognized a need in Kearney for specific, none of them 2 guys or myself probably have any business being in a residential house just because of our thinking and go-get-it attitude and abilities, that we saw this a need for Kearney, and so we're trying to provide that as well.
Got it.
But yeah, the marketing director position was very important, and I knew that was part of the change up. Of course, you gotta meet payroll. You know, you gotta budget differently for things like that. But she's been good. She's been essentially a good investment for the office.
Very good. I think that's good, and I think it's something that businesses are going to have to look at. Even small businesses, even if it's just for a part-time basis, they're going to have to look at more often as having someone that keeps that constant message out there on social media.
Well, and Brian, here's the deal. You know, we're Facebook, we're LinkedIn, we're Twitter, we're I can't Snapchat. Most of them I don't even use, Brian.
Right.
You know, I'm a Facebook, LinkedIn kind of guy, and that's it.
Yeah.
But Crystal takes it to that next level. You know, YouTube, we got our own channel there doing on things. And I think, not only from the seller side, I think they're appreciative of having that expansion go out.
Mm-hmm.
We can also do target media through those avenues as well. But the periodicals this time and advertising and that, it's obsolete.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the traditional auctioneer. With everything online, we've kind of gone by the wayside.
Yeah.
And so it's either eat or die.
Mm-hmm.
Is really what it is. And that's no cowboy term when you have a big cat, eat or die. But that's what it is. I know it sounds harsh, but if you don't have that adaptability in you, and it makes it very challenging to succeed.
Yeah.
But I'm very transparent here in the office, and in our weekly meetings, I call them power session trainings.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more or less a roundtable of this office to see really what's going on in the market. What have you experienced? What have you run into that's weird? I mean, we're running into more weird stuff since COVID hit than I even like to admit.
Yeah.
And so if you have one agent talk about his needs, then you know, the agent takes that information, may run into something similar, but at least you got something there to go off of.
Sure.
And from a brokerage, you know, Crystal comes into those meetings, I'm marketing director, and gets our needs and wants for the week, and she's off and running. So it's always a continual. I always like to involve staff in those meetings as well, because they're part of the team. It just is what it is as far as that goes.
Yeah.
We're all in it together.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, it's worked out good.
What do you wish you were better at when it comes to running this place?
That's a very good question again.
I'll give you a minute to think about it. The reason I ask it is because there's so many hats that you have to wear.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of delegated the social media side of it, but there's the finances, there is managing, there is, you know, having that 1, 3, 5 year goal down the road of what you want this to be. And it's hard to do everything. And so that's why I asked that question, because not everybody can do everything. And as a small business owner, there's times where, man, I wish I was better at that.
Yeah. To answer that directly, the single biggest thing for me is, you know, through Century 21 franchise and even our own in-house bookkeeping here, you know, there's all kinds of numbers that you can see to look at trends, maybe things like that. I wish I would make more time for that and really get down to it. But you know, to me to me it's low priority. It shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah.
And especially in the market, you know, I've really taken this group here weekly to diagnose the MLS statistics. Mm-hmm. And you know, yes, numbers can be skewed anyway, but that you want them to spew or cook the books or whatever. But you can identify trends on what's going on to be on the front side of things. Say, okay, well, hey, we got a need here, we got a need here, we got, you know, and I wish I was, it's not that I can't do it, it's just the time to allocate for it. And I think that's just a growth thing. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, as you continue to operate in here and grow and expand and whatever, you're still finding your role a little bit, essentially. So I think it's to come here, but that's the single biggest thing. The second thing I would note on that question would be maybe a little bit more of a mentorship with the agents, a little bit more one-on-one time. Mm-hmm. You know, because everybody needs a cheerleader. Sure. These guys know it. I mean, I blow their minds with the information that they can get and the technicalities of things. I've run into some weird stuff. And I've got Cordy who's been in here 20-some years, 25 years as well. So combined, we got, you know, 50 years of experience. Sure. And so his institutional knowledge, with my loud mouth, we tend to have some dang good meetings, and it's Corey never had that when he was starting out in the business. I never had that, but that's something I want to provide to these guys to get, you know, concrete under them a little bit quicker.
Yeah, absolutely.
And get to rolling. But mentorship is important. Mentorship's really important, and but we're trying to do that agent to agent mentorship. So, you know, if there's somebody coming on new, we'll pair them up with Angie or Brandon there for a little while and ride around and learn the lingo and kind of get dirty with it. And hey, why don't you co-list this? I do a lot of co-listing with my agents when I get a listing on the newer ones to kind of, okay, come on, let's go. Trying to go to work and just keep them. I always like that sense of vesting in what you're doing here and the belief in that. So
that's how you learn the best, whether it's the hurdles or the weird things coming up, but just to be in the thick of it. That's how you're going to learn, and get confidence.
Exactly. Confidence is the big one. That's exactly right.
So what is your favorite part about being a small business owner?
I like the challenge.
I
really like the challenge. Just figuring out things day to day. There's nothing the same. Nothing the same. I come in tomorrow morning and somebody's got a problem, or if there's an issue or whatever. I just like that ability to float.
Sure.
You know, I'm kind of like the unbridled horse. You just can't put a rein on me. Okay, and that's me. That's my personality, though. The flexibility and time. You know, I'm not a guy that takes authority real well. I challenge it. I question it a lot. You can ask C21 Corporate, but I keep them on their toes. But they've also learned from that, Brian, that Nebraska's different. Nebraska's not like New Jersey or New York or Pennsylvania. We're different.
And Kearney's different than Lincoln or Omaha.
That's right. Grand Valley, even. That's exactly right. And so they've learned that. And so I think coming on as a younger broker with maybe a fresh perspective on things, and that bucking the system a bit. You know, I'm not crazy. Don't get the wrong idea here, but you know, I challenge corporate as well. But I'll tell you, the brokers, older brokers out of Wyoming that I'm on calls with all the time, they're always giggling and smirking, and they're like, "Hey, we wanted to say this for 20 years, and finally we got a guy that is willing to bring it up."
Sure.
You know, and so let's have the round table. There's no shame in that.
Absolutely.
You know, so. But that's essentially what I enjoy, and I enjoy helping people. Especially my agents, also customers and clients. But man, to see them guys succeed or get a deal that's been challenging or what have you, you know, that's I've never done drugs, but it's like a crack cocaine shot. You know, just gets in your veins, and it's like the truckers say: once you trucked, it's always in your blood, or you raise cattle, or you farm. It's just kind of always in your blood. But that's one thing that I like to see these guys get that. I know what their potential is before they recognize it. You see, and so I'm always pushing them for that. And once that light bulb goes on, so they meet where I'm at with them, it's really an amazing kind of situation or feeling, if you will, or emotional hit.
Well, the same excitement you got from selling a house or a property, a business, whatever it was. It's probably fulfilling for you to be able to see that same excitement in someone else. But I mean, even though you maybe weren't directly related to it, you get jazzed up because they, you know, reached even a certain level of potential that you saw in them. And so that's, you know, it's not the same, it's different, but at the same time, it's, you know, being able, I think that's another thing as a small business owner, being able to give people a vision and help them understand just how much they can achieve, and to, in some way or another, give them the same excitement that you had when you were starting out. That is, you don't maybe necessarily get into business for that, but it's a great consequence.
Yes. You know, one thing I wanted to, and I tell my agents this all the time, and I'm going to pull on this up because I want to cite this. I use a little bit different language when I talk about this. Your smile is your logo, your personality is your business card. How you leave others feeling after your experience with them becomes your trademark.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. I mean, and I tell my agents here all the time, take them through that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Not all experiences are going to be flatlined and without a curve or without a bump in them.
Right.
They all have their bumps, but how you treat those bumps and curves is the mainstay.
Absolutely.
That's what you got to do.
Absolutely.
And that's the fun of it. That's the joy I get out in it with people.
Yeah.
Getting that old trench with them and
Yeah.
being able to experience that with them and get them kind of to my level of excitement.
Yeah.
You know, and finally have them realize, God, this short guy, he was right on it.
Yeah.
Right on it the whole time. It's just trying to, come on, you got it, type of thing. So, anyway, that's what we enjoy here.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I match the personality up in the office, Brian. I've got agents that wanted to broker under me, but I just knew that they weren't the right fit for what I was seeking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, I'm not here to be the biggest. We're here to provide something. We're here to be best at what we can be and do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Got it.
anyway.
So, Pat, if you could go back, whether it's, let's say we're going back, whatever, 21 years to when you were just getting into business, or even just 3.5 years ago to when you bought the franchise here, is there any advice that you would give yourself if you could go back and say, you need to do this different, or maybe whatever, or would you just let things go as they have?
I can tell you that I really wouldn't change a whole lot, honestly. I've had a hell of a go at it, and I still got a lot more to go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of a guy that's okay living in the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people can't handle that today.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with it. One thing I would change a little bit, I've always said that I've always been kind of a public success, but a private failure.
Mm-hmm.
I've sacrificed a lot of myself in this, and time for myself, maybe betterment for myself, especially when you have a family and start going that route with things. A guy can always do better on things.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some things I missed as a young man that I wish I could have back. But I'm able to do that stuff now. It's just a different time period. However, I got more knowledge now, so it makes it a little bit better. So I really wouldn't change a whole lot, honestly. I'm good with what's going on here. Just always striving to be better, of course. I mean, if you ask my agents, we're never in a rut. I've got these guys jacked up on high every week, every Monday to get things rolling.
Yeah.
You know, so which is important.
Yeah. So someone comes to you and say, whether, it doesn't matter, a friend comes to you and say they want to start a small business.
Mm-hmm.
What piece of advice would you give them?
Stay the course. You know, stay the course, because we help a lot of people buy businesses attached with real estate, commercially speaking. And, you know, I've sold some C-stores that way, and they just give up. They give up too easy. And it's not for everybody. I mean, you essentially have to be pretty tough and have a good gut on what you got going on, but you got to have direction.
Yeah.
There has to be some planning. There has to be some things that, you know, you got to be familiar with in order to continue on with something like that.
Yeah.
You know, but that's my best advice. Get in and stay in, but know what you're getting in and educate yourself just a little bit.
Yeah. One other question that I have, I just think this is interesting, but how do you think your first 3 years, you talked about the flood, the pandemic, and now the inventory shortage that you're dealing with now, do you think you'll be able to look back and see how that strengthened you, your business, your agents, or I just feel like those challenges that you go through, and maybe it's hard to see now, but I think you'll be able to look back on that and see how you were able to get better through it.
I think it's going to be, I'm highly curious to see that when the dust settles.
Yeah.
You know, the dust is still kind of in the air on that.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, I feel that we've done a good job at transitioning to things and being fluid for the situation in hand. So I think if you can get that, things are going to end in a good result. Because one statistic that sticks in my mind, Brian, when I was looking at stuff and data last week, through quarter 3, I call it Q3, compared to the same time period the previous year, you know, we're down 25% on listings.
Wow.
But we're about the same sales volume as far as units and signs, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Which means there's been a lot of door knocking and stuff that sold that didn't hit the market, and we're up about 18% on volume. I mean, that's a big deal.
Sure.
To stay that and maintain those levels. And we're close to goal setting what we had at the beginning of the year. So, and Q4 is looking just as strong as any quarter we've got.
Yeah.
Contrary to popular belief, everybody says November, December, traditionally pre-internet, it was
Yeah.
slow. Dude, we sell stuff year round. It doesn't change.
Sure.
I mean, I've had my good months, best months in December.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, so it doesn't change anything there.
This is a lot of fun. How do we find out more, before we get done, how do we find out more about you, your brokerage, C21?
Yeah, go to our website or Facebook page.
Okay.
Facebook page will direct you to the website at some point. But we do postings every day on certain things.
Okay.
It's not necessarily property, Brian. But our profiles for each agent are on board. We're adding a commercial site to that website, a commercial sector to it. So
Sure.
it's ever evolving. But that's www.c21midlands.pro. So
Okay.
hit that up or check us out on Facebook, or better yet, just come in. Just come into our new home. We'd love to have you
What's
because
the address?
3715 29th Avenue.
Okay.
Up there northwest side of town, guys. And that was another thing. And moving off 2nd Avenue was a fear. I took a chance there thinking, gosh, nobody's going to know where we're at. But that was all, you know, I don't think anybody knew we moved.
Yeah.
We started, nobody recognized the move. But it was joyful to have some people come in and say, wow, this is a lot different than the dungeon.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
'cause
great.
we were in the garden level, so it's just
Yeah.
a nice step up and refreshing. And of course, the morale did change when you have different settings to come into every
Sure.
day. Why it does change morale, myself included.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
anyway.
Thanks for sharing your story.
Brian, it's good to see you. It's been a pleasure. And
Yeah.
thank you for your time for doing this. And I hope you guys can take something from it.
Yeah.
Or call if you got a question, even about life.
Yeah. A lot of good nuggets in there. Thanks, Pat.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.